Well, everybody, welcome back to Laugh and Learn Human Design. We're continuing our conversation about not self themes, and we're specifically diving into the not self themes for the centers. And today I am joined by the amazing Jennifer from My Holistic Self.
Hello,
And
hello.
all of her links are below, as are the links to the past Laugh and Learns about human design. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tarot Stash. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Please do all of the YouTube-y things. So like, share, and subscribe. It's free. And I do want to remind people to verify that they are subscribed, because YouTube has been doing some things that are a little weird.
Oh no.
People are being unsubscribed.
Really?
Yes. So
good to know.
Yeah. So just now's the time to verify. This is simulcasting on Tarot Stash and My Holistic Self and your Facebook page. So hello, everyone. And we have, this is for entertainment purposes only. Do not make decisions based upon what we say. Seek professional assistance. Really. And a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, Jennifer, it is important to pay attention to what's going on for you and to reach out to people for help. I think it's a key thing. So, but yeah. How are you?
Doing well. I think we're coming into a time that's, energetically, we know that things have been a little all over the place. And so people are feeling some feels, and that's all part of where we're at right now. And so I think it's a great time, especially going into holiday season and the dynamics that can come with that, to be able to really look at, the not self themes and how we get pulled, and, how we show up in ways that are not truly authentic to ourselves. So,
yeah. And that's an important thing. All of this conversation about human design has not just been, it is really about understanding who we are authentically and naturally, because when we understand that, we can make different choices as we go through our day and our interactions. So there's a lot of power in that.
Most definitely.
And lots of people are here. Hello, Maru, Jamie, Jonathan, Kaylee. And, here you go. Everybody else, too, because she was saying two of my favorite people. And to remind people, we, Jennifer and I, are on the Twillo Talk, or Twillo Stash today at 5. So, because when Twillo Stash or Twillo Talk becomes Twillo Stash, lots of fun will happen.
Most definitely.
Links are below for how you get your body graphs and a variety of things.
Go. She's just going to keep on scratching until I do, so it's better to just have her go.
I think I completely understand. So Hypnicity is here. Hello.
Hello.
So all of this great information is available on your website.
Yes.
So lots of really good information, as is the link to find the Human Design coloring book and journal. So there's that. And a lot of this information is based on the definitive guide of human design, Science of Differentiation here. You also pull in information from the Gene Keys.
I do. I do. So if anybody really wants to do a deep dive with the gene keys, Richard Rudd, who brought them forth, has a ton of books out there. Kind of the keystone book to use is Gene Keys, and it goes through and really deep dives into each of the keys. And so, on Twillo Talk, when we do the energy update, and I talk about the transits, we talk about the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi that are associated with the transit that we're in. And that's all coming from Richard Rudd's amazing work.
Mm-hmm. So, excellent. And E. Lilith Beth is here. Hello.
Hello.
Great to see you. So, so we're just gonna, not self themes. I'm just gonna turn it over to Jennifer and let her take the lead.
Sure.
And
sure. So when we're talking about not self themes, right? We're talking about the different aspects that show up in our openness, right? And so these are areas where we can get, one, caught up in operating through the mind instead of through our true authority, and where we can get caught up in the energies of others.
Yeah,
right?
Not self.
Not self. So when we're looking at, a chart and we see that there's an open or undefined chart, which just means that it's not colored in. So when we look at a body graph, and I pulled this one up, but this has all of them colored in. But what we're talking about with centers are these 9 shapes on the body graph. And so when they're colored in, they're considered defined. And there's not self-themes with that as well. But what we're going to look at first is going to be the openness that shows up for us. Because when we talk about deconditioning with human design, it's really about letting go of, what isn't ours. And it's interesting, right? Because we talk about deconditioning and letting go. And I think it's an important piece to recognize that conditioning is always going to be there. Right? We're always going to have different things that are showing up for us. And conditioning is always going to be a part of our experience.
Yes.
So it's not about suddenly getting to a place where we have no conditioning, right? It's about understanding the conditioning and what it does so that we have the ability to navigate in a way that is true for us, as opposed to just reacting within the conditioning and not having any conscious awareness of it.
That's a really important point, because conditioning always happens. It is. It is what it is. And how do we, when we become aware that this is how I've been conditioned, and that is not who I truly am, it gives us the ability to make some different choices and to support ourselves in evolving and growing. So, Is that fair?
That is absolutely fair. I think that's very well said.
Thank you. That happened at 8 minutes in. So, Jackie's Crystal Moon is here. Garnet has joined us, as has Lady Eva J and Karen, Starseed Awakening. So it's great to have everybody here. And again, this is a safe space. This is a lot of information and it's hard to take in. It's hard to take in. It's not necessarily an easy concept. It's one, for me, it's like an appetizer. I'm going to take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I'm going to sit with them and see how they go, and then I'm going to go back. So is that fair as well?
It is. It's we can't, there is so much to all of this.
Yes.
Right? That it's to think that we're going to take it all in and then just be like, okay, I got it. Years and years and years of studying it, and there's still other nuances that can come into play that we are able to learn and grow from. So I think that there is definitely, little bit by little bit is the better way to do it. The mind wants a lot of it, right? But we remember the mind is the not self themes anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I have to remember that, and I did this when we first started talking about human design. I wanted to get all of the information about human design, and I stopped at 3 books. And I'm like, press pause, learn some of this, and be willing to go into it. Jamie, Wandering Mountain Bardic Path said, once you make the choice, you have to do the work. Otherwise, the awakening kind of means nothing. Well said. Well said.
Very well said.
And Kaylee made a note earlier of what we were working through. So, and progress is good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Progress is beautiful.
Progress is beautiful. And it's just like I shared yesterday for the Tarot of Mystical Moments, the Chariot in the tarot card, which often is about speed. It's about transportation and heavy movement. That person is on a snail. And it's like, if I can find it, I'll show it. But it's a very good reminder that every progress, even small steps, are steps. So, but yeah. So okay, I will turn the floor over to you.
Sure. Well, and it is, every step is, big or small, it's still a step, and we're always moving. As much as, we talk about stagnation and we talk about, things kind of feeling in a certain way, we're always moving, and we're either moving in a direction that is unfolding for us, or we're moving in a direction that is, it's the opposite of unfolding, like coming in, right? Like,
going inward instead of going outward and exploring and engaging the world.
Yeah, that's not even how I mean it, though. You guys have to make it clearer. Because I get the concept.
A little help, viewers.
We talk about an unfolding, and that's the going in, because we're taking layer and layer off in order to really become who we actually are. Right? That is our unfolding. And so it's almost like that masking that comes in, right? Where we're putting layers and layers on that aren't really who we are. And that's a lot of what this not self conditioning is about, right? Is that we're taking on all of these things that actually cover what's going on inside of us. So yeah, restricting would be a good word there. Thank you.
Or could it be also like putting on costumes instead of taking off those things that don't fit us and that are not authentically us?
Yeah.
So Hypnicity said, I'm trying to direct my attention to balance. Neutral may not get me far, but it helps me focus on more useful things. Yeah.
And so when we're talking about not self themes, right, we look at that and we kind of go, okay, where do not self themes take us away from our focus?
Right? Disguising.
It's another great word. I think there's
word.
Quite a few good words that could go there. So, you guys are doing great with helping me with them. Thank you.
Yeah. Piling mask on mask on mask on mask. Because this is the the brain, the mind is not the true self.
Right.
So that's not the authentic self in human design. So
what's beautiful is, and tell me if I already shared this piece. I know we've touched on it, but in human design, we have 3 crystals, right? We've got the personality crystal, the design crystal, and then what is called the magnetic monopole. And the magnetic monopole is that connection to higher self, is how I see it, right? And so it is that piece of us that is in us, right? That deep inner who we are, and also that which connects us to source and all that is, right? And then we've got, again, the design crystal, which is the body. And that is the form that we're in. So I'm just going to keep talking, and hopefully Gerald will be back in a minute. Hopefully I'm not the one that's gone, but we'll see how this.
It's me. I pressed a button. Sorry.
I was like, I'm just going to keep going.
No, keep going. I moved my mouse to be able to make a note of the 3 crystals. That could be a very good topic.
Okay. It would be a beautiful topic.
Oh, okay.
Apologies,
everybody. Thanks for sticking it out.
I'll just keep on going.
keep on going. Keep on going.
Back. So the design crystal is the body, and then the personality crystal is who we think we are, right? It's the mind. And so we look at that, and the whole concept of passenger consciousness is that the mind is meant to be the passenger. The body is the vehicle, and the magnetic monopole is the driver, right? And so it's a beautiful kind of illustration that's easy for for us to understand, that really expresses how much the mind and all of the not self that we get caught up in tries to take the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And it really has no place there. It's meant to just be the passenger.
Yes. Very nice.
So, not self themes and the centers. I think maybe what we'll do is we can take a quick look at each of them, and then we're going to pick one and dive in.
Okay. And by the way, I did find the chariot in the Tarot of the Mystical Moments. This is the chariot.
Oh, that is awesome.
So there you go.
That is awesome. I love that there is a snail there. So often you see it with the horses that are just
well, and oftentimes in the original RWS, Rider-Waite-Smith, the animals pulling it are actually stone, so they're not moving. So, but yeah.
Okay, good to know.
Okay, so there we go. Do you need the bigger screen or anything like that?
I can.
Can you share?
I can share. Let's do that. So let me pull up.
And I thank everybody for watching. Appreciate it.
I'm going to pull up my chart.
Okay.
And then I can share it. All right. So here we go. Share screen. Thanks for sticking by me as I try to figure it all out there. Present and share screen. And we're going to share this window and share. So I kind of changed the little Benum here that we have. And so now it's got the chakra colors on it.
Nice.
So if that throws you all off, my apologies. I can always change it back. But for now, this is the one we've got. So when we're talking about not self themes, we're just going to go through each of the centers one at a time, just really quick, just to express something to look for with each of them. Okay. So if you got questions, let me know. The idea behind the not self themes here, as we're looking at them, is that you want to notice if it's open or if it's colored in. So when we talk about open, this is open, right? There's no gates. There's nothing going on in it. It's completely open. This gate here, these 3 actually are called undefined because they've got gates activated in them, but they're not defined centers. And then all of the rest of my centers, you can see they're colored in here. They're defined. Okay. So when we're talking about I'm going to say open and undefined, I'm going to use these kind of interchangeably because the not self themes are going to be the same. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. Good to go then. All right. So let's start I guess we'll start at the head and we'll work our way down from there. All right. So right here, okay, we're on the head center, the purple triangle at the top there. And so the thing that you want to look at is, am I distracted, right, by inspirations? Am I overwhelmed by other people's questions? Is there a mental pressure there to answer questions for other people? And do I come into a place where I feel either everything is inspirational or nothing is inspirational. Right? And so we notice that and go, okay, what do I need to do to be able to kind of move through that? And the idea here is to check in with yourself. Check in with the statements that the mind is making. What are you holding on to mentally? And is that correct for you or not? Okay.
By the way, everybody, spoiler alert, you just described me, Jennifer.
So here's the really interesting thing, Gerald, because with the mind, with the ajna and the head center, whether you're defined or not, you're going to have these experiences.
Which is, that's my chart. So there we go.
Right. And so it's really fascinating because we're talking about, defined and undefined. And yet there's going to be certain aspects here where we're going to feel it either way. How we feel it may show up differently. Sure. With an undefined, it's about tapping into everything around. Whereas when it's defined, it's constantly producing its own. So either way, there's a lot of energy happening there. Right. And so, we look at that and go, okay, the question that I'm asking here about, is this correct for me, is important regardless of your definition or lack thereof. Right. Because if we're focusing on things that have no value or no importance to us, why are we spending our time with that?
Yes.
Right. And where is that getting us and how does that serve us?
Yeah.
Right. So the next one that we're going to.
That's a great question to have in people's toolboxes, that when they're struggling, their mental health, wellness, or their overall well-being is a little wonky, the ability to stop and to ask that question, is this correct for me, is very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop talking now.
No, I love it. I very much appreciate it. So the ajna here, right? We're looking at that center. And so when we look at that, there can be, when it's undefined, this need to prove its certainty. Right? So this is really fascinating too, because we look at the ajna, and again, defined or undefined, we're going to have it show up in different ways. So the defined ajna can get really caught up in what I think is true. And that is just the truth. Right? Because the defined ajna has the ability to be really certain about things, regardless of whether or not it's true.
Okay.
Right? And then we look at the undefined ajna, and the undefined ajna wants that certainty. Right? And so it gets very caught up in trying to prove that it's certain, that it can get very rigid in its thoughts and opinions because it feels so uncertain, right? But it really wants that certainty. The crazy thing about the mind is that it always wants what it isn't, which is why we have all of these not self themes.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Hi, Kim B.
Yeah. So I see Jonathan has a question there.
Okay. The top triangle is undefined and the lower triangle is defined. Does the defined triangle ground the undefined triangle?
Oh, if only.
Yeah, I was going to say no.
So what we're looking at, right, is each one of these centers has their own kind of unique energy signature, right? And even if they're connected, and that connection will allow for certain energies to process through them. But they don't necessarily, ground one another in any other kind of way. If I look at it and say, does it ground? I could maybe potentially stretch it to say that one defined center is grounding another defined center. In this case, for my chart, I have that channel between the two. And the only reason I would say that is because it defines them. And in definition, we have consistent energy. in those centers.
Okay.
And that's the only way that I would look at it as a grounding, is just the consistency of the energy, versus if we're open or undefined, like you can see in these 4 centers here, I don't have consistent energy in those centers. So the energy signatures that they have ebb and flow for me. Whereas in my definition, I have consistent energy to access what's going on in those centers.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. I'm not sure if it makes sense to Jonathan.
Okay. Well, if you've got another question, please ask, and we can continue from there. So with the ajna there, one of the questions that's really important to look at is, it doesn't, and again, it doesn't matter if it's defined or undefined. There's the potential for that conditioning. So what you want to look at is, I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to have all the answers.
Okay.
Right? And also looking at it and going, again, defined or undefined, I don't need to fear being judged for the opinions that I have.
Okay.
Right? Because we can get really caught up in needing to defend ourselves, needing to hold really firmly on beliefs and things like that. But they're really just our beliefs, right? They're not necessarily true in the bigger picture of what is truth.
Sure.
And so, we can get very caught up, regardless of our definition, in wanting it to be, a certain way, or wanting others to see things the same way as us. That's not necessary, and it's not really possible.
Okay.
Okay, so we look at the throat here, and we're going to, move down to that. So with a defined throat, there's a consistent energy in terms of being able to communicate, to do things. And this is also connected to metabolism. When this is undefined or open, the throat can try sometimes to get attention because there's a bit of an insecurity there and a not being listened to, right? And so that not being listened to brings about that insecurity, which then causes this kind of overcompensation, right?
Okay.
So one of the things that you can find, somebody who has an open throat, bless his heart, my youngest has an open throat, and he just talks for the sake of talking and about things that none of us are talking about, and just kind of jumps in and talks about all kinds of, stuff. And it's not, it's not to continue a conversation. It really is about just wanting to get that attention or bring that attention to him.
And it's, and I want to say that's not good nor bad. It just is. And as a parent, you understanding that about your child gives you the ability to engage him in new ways so that he can be part of instead of just talking.
Yeah. It was a beautiful experience. And I'm going to actually just stop sharing for a minute, because I think this is such an important piece. And going into the holidays, maybe the throat's where we're going to focus for a moment. Because when we got to the place where we realized that this was an open throat issue, we were talking and we were looking through the chart, and we sat down with him, and it was so evident that he really never felt heard.
Oh, okay.
Right? And noticing that this open throat was there, we were able to explore what was going on in the dynamics. And it came out, I tend to always listen to my eldest over my youngest.
Okay.
My eldest has a defined throat and the channel of the alpha. My youngest does not. Right? And to say, like, why do you always take, what Ray says over what I say? Oh, like not even realizing that that's what's happening, but then seeing it in there and going, yeah, you know what, that is what's happening. And I'm being pulled by the mechanics of this relationship. It's not that I care more about one is saying over the other. And it's not even that I believe one over the other.
Yes.
But because of the mechanics of the design, I'm more inclined to just listen to the one over the other.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And unless invited, that open throat often doesn't feel heard, and they're not heard. Because if somebody hasn't invited them to share what they have to share, they don't get listened to, even if they have beautiful things to share.
Yes.
Right? Because it's a projected energy, which as projectors, we know invitation is so important.
Yes. Well, and I think you're right. Because of the holidays, I think the holidays, because people feel obligated to spend time with their family, and that, first of all, can be very stressful. I think that's going to highlight the conditioning that we grew up with. And so we might fall back into I'm falling back into that role that I took as a child in this family dynamic.
Yeah.
And so paying attention to that and being and allowing that to be understood by you can be really life-changing, I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We in human design, there's something called a penta. And so where you've got your regular chart, and then you have your companion chart, so you with another person. And then from there, I think it's 3 to 5 people make up a penta.
Okay.
And then from there, we get into, other things. But when we're in our family units, we're in these pentas, generally speaking, and they take on a whole new dynamic. Right? And depending on what we bring to the penta determines kind of our role in it. Right?
Wow.
And so this is why we go, I've done all this work, I've made all this progress, I'm doing all this, but every time I go back into my family, I fall right back into the same pattern. What is going on? And then we immediately go to what's wrong with me. No.
Nothing's wrong with you.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Right?
Yeah.
But we have to notice, this is the penta. This is just this group dynamic energy, the mechanics of the group. And this is the role that I've always fallen into because of these mechanics. Right? Now we have the ability to do something with that. We can honor it and just go, okay, these are the mechanics. It is what it is, and not take it personally. We can recognize it and try to bring awareness to it so that something different can be done. And depending on the family and the dynamics there, that may or may not be possible.
Yes.
Right? But it gives us more power to be able to navigate these things with new narratives around them.
Yes. It also, you said, we can navigate that with new power. It also allows us to not have our power removed from us. So,
yeah.
Ooh, that's great. Okay. That's great.
Yeah. Well, and when we look at all of these, right, we look at all of the different centers and, we see how they impact at 64. I'm
still the baby. I often get stuck in the role when I'm with my siblings. Of course. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Sip, sip.
Yeah. Reminding us to have a sip of our...
Have a sip.
Green tea. Okay, so I guess we can deep dive more into that, or we can keep going. I just feel like as we're going into the holidays, and I know we had talked about, do we deep dive or do we keep going? But maybe
follow your gut.
I think we need to just go through it because it's going to give you all something to be aware of as you get, into these dynamics to see what's shifting inside of you. So I'm going to go ahead and present again just so that you guys can see where we're at. And there we go.
Yeah. Okay, let me add that. There you go.
Okay. So we're going to move into the G center now, which is this heart here. And it's a little throwing off because this is actually the heart center, but this is the G center. And the G center is about love, identity, and direction, which we talked about before when we did the centers. And this center can get very caught up in what's right in terms of that love, identity, and direction.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when it's defined, we have a consistent sense of self. We have a consistent kind of direction in our lives. There's just a more consistent way of navigating life.
Uh-huh.
When it's open, we're meant to be able to ebb and flow with things. We're meant to be able to be a bit more of a chameleon. Right. So people who say, I go here and I'm like this and I go there and I'm like that. And I kind of just shift and change depending on where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
That's that openness.
Yes.
And so if you have an open center and you're really caught up in, I need to figure out what is the absolute right way for me to be, that's a not self theme because you're meant to shift and change. And that shifting and changing, one of the things I want to make sure I express here with the openness and all of that is our openness is also our wisdom, right? So we have the ability in that openness to be able to understand things on a deeper level, right? Ra talks about how the openness is our classroom and our defined centers are the students, right? Our definition has to learn from our openness. And so when we look at that and go, okay, if I'm open in this area, can I just allow myself to ebb and flow and change in these different environments? Because the beauty of the genius here is that an open G center can go into an environment, notice how they shift when they're in that environment, and that helps them to determine if that environment is correct for them or not.
Okay.
Right? So if you shift into something that doesn't feel good or doesn't resonate for you, then you're able to take that step back and go, oh, this isn't a good environment for me. If we're able to notice that.
Uh-huh.
Right? Whereas a G center knows who they are. If they go in somewhere and it tries to make them be something other than what they are, they're going to feel that same kind of insecurity, right? It's going to be like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel correct. And so, again, we look at it and go, there's these not self themes that can show up where we're trying to be, we're trying to be something that doesn't necessarily hold for us.
Right.
And then there's a wisdom when we're able to let go of that not self theme and kind of step into what that energy really is for us.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Okay. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. So, I mean, it makes sense to me at a certain level, I will say. So, but yeah, that makes sense. And Jonathan is like, and I'm so glad I have the chart Jennifer made for me, helps me get the most from these chats. Don't forget to get your own chart.
Yes.
And
thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah. And you are available to help people understand and read their chart.
Yes.
So,
yes.
But
yeah,
so
somebody wants a reading, I do offer those. And so that's definitely an option.
So.
And we get to do a kind of deep dive into your specific chart.
Yes, I think
and all of the things that show up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So let's go next to the heart center. Sorry, I'm pointing to it on our screen. Let me go back to my actual window so that you can see where my pointer is. And then we'll be good to go. There we go. So here we go. The heart center. Here. So the heart center for me is undefined, and the heart center for almost half the population is undefined.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now this is also sometimes called the will center or the ego center. And it really is about our willpower, right? And with this center undefined, let me back up. When the center is defined, there's a natural kind of competitiveness that happens. And that competitiveness can be really healthy for a defined will center because it motivates them and motivates that willpower. It pushes them to expand in their experience. But for the undefined will center, we're not meant to jump into that place. So a lot of times the undefined will center is going to get caught up in trying to prove its worth, trying to prove its value, trying to overcompensate, right? Struggling with low self-esteem, struggling with, a lot of that feeling as of not good enough. And the will center also can sometimes try by, pushing themselves more than they have capacity for, promising things that they really just don't have the ability to follow through with, because they want so desperately to have that value placed. But if the open will center can recognize, I'm not part of that. Like, I don't have to be part of that. I don't have to prove myself. There's nothing that I have to do in order to prove anything. Then they can take a step back and begin to actually see what is of value in terms of what does need to be pushed for and what doesn't, right? It's a really different kind of dynamic. And so much, people who have an undefined will, and I can say this because clearly I have an undefined will here, we often don't know our own value, right? And can get caught up in not knowing the value that we place on our services, on the things that we do, right? On so many things. And so, you take a step back from that and go, okay, when it comes to, shadow work and stuff like that, this open will center, how we were talking about when we did authorities and we talked about like the hierarchy of authorities. So everything kind of starts with the solar plexus here, and then it moves its way through when we're talking about authority. The will center is the authority when it comes to the shadow side of us.
Okay.
So the very place that the mind will always go first if it's undefined is going to be here.
Okay.
Right? So you think about the world in this whole idea of needing to prove ourselves, needing to push ourselves, needing to do, be, have, right? In order to prove. Well, that's this lack of definition in our will center, saying that we have to do all of these things in order to prove our value, as opposed to, what we talk about so often on the shows and I talk with clients is we are valuable just because we are.
Yes.
Right? And again, whether it's defined or undefined, we are valuable just because we are. It's just that for definition, there's consistent energy here, and competition actually is fun, and it pushes and it moves forward, and it's a beautiful thing. When it's undefined, it's getting caught up in that not self energy by being in that dynamic.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay.
So then let's go over here to the solar plexus. So the solar plexus, when it's undefined, really wants to avoid confrontation, right? And I can see this in my own life. And I think we even talked about this in the last one.
Yeah.
Right? That part of us that just does not want to deal with confrontation. We don't want to get caught up in the feelings, right? We don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. We don't want to set ourselves up for being hurt. We don't want to, have to address things. And one of the things that Ra says is this idea too of not wanting to face the truth.
Okay.
Right. And it's really interesting. And I remember being open solar plexus here, undefined, and going, what is he talking about? I'm not afraid of the truth.
Yeah.
And then going, yeah, no, let's be real. Yes, you are, Jen. Because it's not afraid of the truth in the sense of like, the greater truth and all of that. It's afraid of the truth in the sense of really facing what's going on. Right?
Yeah.
Understanding the narrative, understanding my own narrative, understanding the narrative of the other, and truly looking at it from a more, diffused kind of place where we're not
Sure.
so connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
But because that undefined solar plexus will bring, it amplifies, right, to the point of distortion. All open centers can do that. And so we look at that and go, I'm afraid of confrontation. I'm afraid of feeling those feelings. I'm afraid of how they're going to expand within me. I'm afraid of all of these things,
Yeah. You're
right? And I
afraid of the ramifications of that.
mm-hmm,
Okay.
right. And so
Okay.
we notice that and go, okay, I see what's happening. So you'll notice this too. There's going to be, certain times with, family, friends, all of that. And somebody's like, we're going to just talk about it. Right.
Ah,
And then, you've got these other, open and going, no, we're not. No, I'm
yeah.
not available right now.
Yes.
Right. Because
Yes.
that's the energy that shows up here. And, we, again, with the defined, it's that having to ride the emotional wave before clarity comes. And
Mm-hmm.
so even that, well, we're going to talk about it isn't necessarily accurate in timing if they haven't ridden that wave. Right.
Yes.
So again, it's just, again, the noticing. We want to really notice what's happening, notice what's showing up for us so that we have the ability to, sit with it and navigate it.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's go over here to the sacral. All right. So sacral is generator energy. So if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, you've got this bad boy defined. You've got access to that energy. If you are honoring your authority, you got unlimited energy to be able to deal with
Yeah.
things. If this is not defined, you are a projector, a manifester, or a reflector, and you do not have consistent access to this energy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what ends up showing up here when it's open is feeling very overworked, right? This need to push in order to put out the same amount of energy that those around you are putting
Mm-hmm.
out,
Yeah.
right? And feeling very much like you have to just do that. And what ends up happening, it's really interesting because, generators will go, well, I feel burnt out too. Yeah, because you're saying yes to things you should be saying no to and no to things you should be saying yes to. That's going to be your burnout.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Whereas for the undefined, what we're looking at here is, you're either trying to tap in and getting addicted to almost other people's sacral energy. And this can happen for non-sacral beings where they
Mm-hmm.
want, they get kind of a high around that energy. It's like, okay, come on, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Right.
Yeah.
And so we look at that and go, okay, if that's the case and we're getting, pulled into that, that's why that need to release the energy that we've picked up throughout the day is so important.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're not meant to hold that energy. It's not ours. Right.
Yeah. It's not ours. It's an important thing. Yeah. Kaylee is like sounds about right. Constantly exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what happens when we're trying to push and operate like a generator. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens to generators when they're trying to operate in ways that are not correct for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we've got the spleen here.
Mm-hmm.
And the spleen energy is about it's survival, right? It's a survival. It's the most basic, ancient kind of system within us.
Uh-huh.
And this system, when we're undefined, it will often hold on to things that are not good for it. And they'll hold on much longer than what's good for them, right? So there's other places in the chart where it can also show up, but this is a place where we can often find like codependency and things like that, where we're holding on to, let's say, relationships that we know aren't good for us, right? And yet that fear of what else is out there, again, survival, right, can get us caught up in that. And the mind tries to figure it out as opposed to just honoring what the truth is. right? There's also a
Yes.
fear of vulnerability. There's a fear of, sometimes taking on responsibility that can come with that. With it defined, we're looking at the ability to kind of create our own fears in certain ways. And so when we notice, the different things that kind of get pulled from us, it's a really interesting thing to kind of look at that and then look at the chart and go, okay, where is this coming from? Because the moment we can shift it into mechanics, the moment we can stop narrating it as something is wrong with us.
Ah,
right?
That's powerful right there. Nothing's wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It's a mechanic. It's a shadow aspect. It's a not self theme. It's something that I've been conditioned to, or it's right here in my chart, and I need to figure out how to operate with it.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the root here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this root center is all about our ability to grow and evolve, right? It's a pressure center. So we've got the two pressure centers, which is the root center here and the head center. And they're pressure, like, think of us as like pressurized, right? It's coming in from both.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And we're pressurized, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we have that natural pressure that's a part of us when we're defined, and that pressure moves us to do things and all of that. But when we're undefined, there's an inconsistency with that pressure. And so we're going to be feeling that pressure from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, you look at that and go, okay, when I get caught up in, this pressure of having to do, we're not able to sit still. We're not able to be calm. We're not able to maybe do self-care, right? Anything that isn't hurry up and get it done so that I can get past the pressure, we don't have time for,
Mm-hmm.
right? So again, we notice this going into the holidays and everything else, the high amounts of stress and the pressure that we can feel from others to do all this stuff and to get so much done and to be here and be there and all of that. Is that pressure naturally ours, or is that pressure coming from outside? Right? And if that pressure is naturally ours, we get to then decide how we want to navigate that. If that pressure is coming from outside, we have to be able to go, not my pressure.
Yeah.
Right? What do I actually have? What do I want to do? What do I have energy for?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm going to move. If that pressure is naturally ours, we still do the same thing, but it feels a little bit different within us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Jonathan shared, interesting that I have the root pressure, but the head is undefined. I wonder if that's why I'm too calm sometimes.
Maybe. With that openness, again, it can go in two different ways when we're talking about the head, right? And so if that openness is there and it's just going, it's cool, I'm going to tap into what I want to tap into and go from there, then that's beautiful.
Uh-huh.
If that openness is going, it's all too much, it's all too overwhelming, never mind, I don't want to do any of it, and it's shutting us down, that's something else that we need to notice.
Right.
Right? And it's the same thing when we look at the root with that pressure, right? If we're in that and it's too much pressure all of the time coming from everywhere and we just end up shutting down, we have to notice that,
Mm-hmm.
right? If it's this, constant pressure to do, and we're just trying to get it all done, we're going to damage our nervous system with that too, right? If we talk about, the ability to actually have like adrenal fatigue and stuff like that, and we look at it and go, where does this come from? It comes from high stress. Okay, how does that show up in a chart? Well, here you go. Right?
Yeah. I also imagine that these, not self themes and the centers, they are going to show up physically for us in many different ways. So there's that physical response as well as the mental, the spiritual, the emotional response.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Right. And each part, each gate, everything is connected with different parts of the body, organs, amino acids. Like there's
Yes.
there's a reason why they say that this is also part of, DNA, right? Is because there's a, I digress for a moment. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay.
We look at all of this and we kind of go, okay, there's so much here, and there really is. It's very intricate. But when we really break it down, now this is my belief, take it, leave it, and do whatever you want with it. But that part of us, that higher self part of us, that part of us that is source, is connected with source, is not something out there. It is something that is in us, and it's in every single cell of our body. And so every cell that we have has that within it. And what ends up happening is when we look at something like this, we begin to understand that these dynamics are not something outside of us in any way, shape, or form. Right? They really are like wired within us.
Yeah.
Right. And then we look at that and go, okay, what do I do with that? And we begin to see, these open areas where we are having all of this conditioning. And we go, okay, if this isn't really how I am, then what do I want to do with that energy?
Yes.
Right. So we think about, let's say, family, again, holidays, we're going to go see family. And let's say we have an open sacral, which, only 30% of the world does. So we say, you know what, I really want to do this, but I don't know that I have enough energy to keep up with everybody during this time. That's okay. I can still allow myself to do what I'm able to do and then take those breaks when I'm not, right? Let's say I have that defined and the mind is still getting in the way, not self-theme here, saying that we can't honor that sacral response. So the sacral response is saying, no, I don't have the ability to put my energy towards this, right? But it's what's expected, right? Mechanics, again, let's say you've got that sacral energy, mechanics dictates, well, you should do it. Okay, but that's not necessarily the case if if that's not what is authentic with your authority, right? So you can see how these things kind of all come together and how, it doesn't matter defined or undefined. We're all going to have these kind of not self themes, and they show up in ways that, as we dive in here, we look at it and go, when I don't feel okay, there is something going on that I'm not honoring within myself. Right? That whole idea of dis-ease, right? When something is not correct, it's because I'm not honoring a truth within me somewhere.
Yes.
Right? And that is kind of the easiest way to look at something and go, there's got to be a not self theme here.
Yes.
Right? There's something going on here and I'm getting myself caught up in it. What's happening? Right? So we look at that and go, okay, let's say anxiety, right? This is all around that head and ajna for sure. We're going to have anxiety showing up there. Depression is going to show up there. It might also show up down in that root, right? Because of that pressure center, intrusive thoughts and overwhelm. We're going to get kind of caught up in all of that, right? We look at, the way that we can kind of end up in those freeze responses, right? That emotional freeze that can take over when we don't have the ability to show up or confrontation is too much, right? We become overwhelmed and we want to avoid, right? And it just, it takes on this kind of, we talk so freely about like the fight, flight, freeze response, right? And what's going on with our nervous system, and add fawning to that too, because that's definitely showing up in there. And we can actually look at the chart and go, oh, That's where that comes from, right? If I feel lost, if I feel like I don't know how to move in my life, if I like that directionless energy, right? There can be some dissociating that happens either by becoming someone else or by just stepping out because we don't even know who we're supposed to be in that space. Like we're looking at freeze and fawn right there, right? And we look at that and go, okay, that's really interesting. If I can just allow myself to be however I show up in that area and then determine if that feels correct for me or not, I don't have to get caught up in that energy of having to know what I'm supposed to be or how I'm supposed to be.
Right.
Right? That there's a huge release in that.
Yes. Yeah. It's a huge noticing, because in therapy, again, for entertainment purposes only, noticing is a key thing. Noticing what's going on, it gives you the ability to do something different. It also gives you the ability to take informed action.
Yes.
So Jonathan had a question. Can we use our authority to help us with the not self of our undefined centers?
Yes, yes, yes.
There you go.
Yes. If we can actually use our authority, we can not give in to the mind all the time, right? The mind just steps in because we don't listen to our authority.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that. The mind steps in because we don't listen to our authority. Mm-hmm. Yep. You got it. Yeah.
So, you're going into, let's say a work holiday party, right? And your authority is telling you that you don't have the energy to talk to, all these different people. And you go, okay. But then everybody just keeps coming, right? And you go, okay, well, I have to. And then you just keep doing it because the mind is saying, well, I have to. I'm here and I have to, right? As opposed to, honoring the authority and going, you know what, I'm going to go get some air.
Yep.
Right? I'm just going to give myself that space.
I'm going to go to the bathroom so that I can not be around everybody.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I think this is part of that balance of what happens is when we understand who we are, then it gives us the ability to pull in other resources when the mind kicks in, and to go, okay, this isn't who I am. This isn't authentically me. I have these other resources available to assist me.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow. Hey, guess what? We made it through all of those.
I flew through them. So we'll have to deep dive another time.
Yeah.
But what just kept coming is the more awareness we have, especially going into these times where we're going to be put in, situations that we're not necessarily in every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be really valuable to know where we're at and what's going on and what's showing up for us.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I know everybody who is watching this is a lot of information. Take it in small chunks. Go back to it. Revisit it. These videos are in that playlist to be able to be a resource to help you as you are investigating and learning. And as we've said, you can contact Jennifer to be able to get your own body graph. You can contact her for being able to have a conversation about that and to evaluate that. So it's all of the links are below.
So, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And again, I know we've talked about it on the website. There's a lot of free resources on there.
A lot, yeah.
And, going in and you can actually hover over the centers and see what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
well, and this is one of those things that depending upon how you deal with new information, This can be overwhelming. It can be really fascinating. It can also be fascinating and overwhelming. You do you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah. And so thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's
Thank you
great.
so much for
This is
having
great.
me, and thank you everybody who's been asking and contributing to the discussion.
Yes. And, you're going to find this video when you need to find it. Great. Glad you're here. Make sure that you subscribe and you like the video. Save it to your own playlist so that you don't lose it. So it's great seeing you. Jennifer, what else do you have coming up?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, we've got Twillo Talk tonight at 5 Eastern, and you can find that on my channel, Tanis's channel, and I believe, Gerald, you also cast it, so on your channel as well.
Mm-hmm. I save it for later.
Oh, you save it for later. Okay.
So, but I will.
So come on over to mine or Tanis's, and you'll be able to watch it live and join the conversation there. We have one of our amazing guests who's with us monthly on with us today, who's not even a guest anymore. He's just like part of the show.
Yeah. And so it's Twillo Stash. So come over. And it is about authentic conversation and what's going on. And we never know what we're going to be discussing. And it's very informative and just a lot of fun. There will be laughs.
Always.
So yes.
Yeah, so I've got that going on. And then as far as lives go, let me just actually look, because I know I do actually have a few things coming up that are worth sharing. I just have to look at my calendar because,
Well, while you do that, I want to remind people that Glimmer Globe 2024 is going on. This is I'm hosting this on my channel. You can find that information there. It's a great way to spend some of the colder days if you're in December in the Northern Hemisphere. Give that a look. And so it's very helpful. I find it very helpful. So what do you got coming up?
Yeah. So on Sunday, and I have to double check if we're recording it or if we're live. If we're live, it'll be broadcast on mine as well through Facebook or YouTube. But with Beyond Being Human, we're actually starting support groups for people just as drop-ins. That you can come to in order to just gain support for all different kinds of topics. So I'm going to be hosting, Tanis is going to be hosting, and then a few other absolutely amazing people that are part of Beyond Being Human are going to be hosting different groups throughout the month. So you'll be able to do that. There's actually one that's happening on the 10th, so that's tomorrow evening. But then we're doing a panel discussion on Sunday just to introduce it to everybody.
Nice.
And then Tanis and I are going to be hosting our first one together on the 20th at 5 Eastern. So I just want to put that out there because that's starting as well. And it'll be together on Zoom, and nothing's recorded, nothing's posted. It really is just a free space to be able to connect.
That's good. So if you're looking for resources, there's a resource for you. So that's beautiful. So, all right. I want to thank everybody for verifying that you are subscribed to both of our channels, and check the community tabs because I'm sharing a lot of things about where I'm going to be. And I've got a lot of shows this week that I'm looking forward to. So, all right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching, and take care of yourself. Bye.
Bye.